I thought I could get away with anything as long as I looked untouchable. Standing at that altar in my $1,000 dress, watching Jonas's face crumble as I delivered my surprise, I felt invincible. The gasps from both families, the nervous laughter from the crowd, the way my mother beamed with pride at my boldness, it all felt like validation that I was ahead of my time, that I understood modern love better than everyone else. My name is Eirene Voss, and I'm 32 years old. I work as an insurance underwriter, which means I spend my days calculating risks and determining what people can get away with. Maybe that's why I thought I had Jonas figured out. Quiet, conflict-averse Jonas, who always smiled through my little rebellions, who never fought back when I pushed boundaries. The Grand Hotel ballroom was perfect that day. Crystal chandeliers cast romantic light over 300 guests, and every detail screamed expensive taste. I had orchestrated this wedding like a military campaign, from the imported flowers to the celebrity photographer. Everything had to be flawless, including my moment of calculated rebellion. "Do you, Eirene, take Jonas to be your husband?" the officiant asked. I paused, letting the silence stretch just long enough to make everyone uncomfortable. Then I turned slightly toward the crowd and said, "Well, I suppose someone has to keep him interesting." The nervous laughter rippled through the ballroom. Jonas's jaw tightened, but he kept smiling. Good old reliable Jonas. But I wasn't done. During the reception, as we cut the cake, I made sure the photographer captured me feeding a piece to Lucas Mertens, my ex-boyfriend who I'd strategically seated at the head table. Lucas, with his advertising copywriter charm and reckless grin, played along perfectly. "Some traditions never get old," I announced to the crowd, licking frosting off my finger as Lucas winked at me. My mother, Clara, actually applauded. "That's my brave girl," she called out, raising her champagne glass. Never afraid to colour outside the lines. My father, Alan, looked less enthusiastic. He kept glancing between Jonas and me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Concern, maybe, or disappointment. Jonas's mother, Maggie, had gone completely pale. Her lips pressed into a thin line as she watched me laugh with Lucas. Jonas's brother, Oliver, kept trying to redirect conversations, playing the peacemaker as always. The real masterpiece came during the toasts. I had arranged for Lucas to speak, and he delivered exactly what I'd hoped for. "To Eirene," Lucas said, raising his glass with theatrical flair, "the one who got away, and apparently came back just long enough to break another heart." He looked directly at Jonas. "Don't worry, buddy. She's worth the trouble. Trust me, I know." The ballroom fell silent. I could practically hear heartbeats. Then I started laughing, a bright, confident sound that gave everyone permission to join in. Most did, though the laughter felt forced. Jonas didn't laugh. He set down his champagne flute and stared at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not hurt exactly. Something colder. "Lighten up, honey," I whispered to him, squeezing his arm. "It's just a joke. Don't be so old-fashioned." He pulled his arm away gently but firmly. "Excuse me," he said to the table and walked toward the exit. I watched him go, still smiling. Let him sulk. He'd get over it like he always did. By tomorrow, he'd apologize for being too sensitive, and I'd graciously accept. That's how our dynamic worked. The rest of the reception continued perfectly. I danced with Lucas twice, posed for hundreds of photos, and basked in the attention. Several guests commented on how refreshing it was to see such an honest bride, someone willing to acknowledge her past instead of pretending it didn't exist. "You're so brave," my cousin Rebecca gushed. "Most women would never have the confidence to do what you did tonight." Brave, confident, modern. These were the words I collected like trophies. Around 11 p.m., I realized Jonas still hadn't returned. Oliver found me by the dessert table. "Hey, Eirene," he said carefully. "Jonas asked me to tell you he went home. Said he had a headache." I shrugged. Poor baby. All this excitement must have been too much for him. Oliver's expression tightened. Maybe you should go check on him. He's fine, I said, selecting a petite four. Jonas just needs time to process. He's not used to being married to someone so dynamic. But as the reception wound down and I posed for final photos, a tiny seed of unease planted itself in my stomach. Jonas had never left an event early before. He was too polite, too concerned about appearances. When I finally got home to our apartment at 2 a.m., still in my wedding dress, Jonas wasn't there. His overnight bag was gone, along with his laptop and work clothes. I called his phone. It went straight to voicemail. Jonas, it's me. Where are you? Come home so we can laugh about tonight. I know you're being dramatic, but the joke's over now. He didn't call back. I fell asleep on our couch, still in my dress, telling myself he'd be back in the morning with coffee and apologies. That's how our fights always ended, with Jonas backing down and me graciously accepting his surrender. But when I woke up the next morning, the apartment was still empty, and there was an envelope that had been slipped under our door. The envelope was thick, official-looking, with my name typed across the front in formal lettering. For a moment, I thought it might be a wedding gift, maybe a honeymoon upgrade or congratulations from Jonas's law firm colleagues. I was wrong. Inside were legal documents, real ones, with official seals and letterhead from Morrison and Associates, a family law firm downtown. The words swam before my eyes as I tried to process what I was reading. Petition for annulment of marriage. Irreconcilable differences arising from fraudulent misrepresentation of character and intent. Immediate freezing of all joint financial accounts pending resolution. My hand started shaking. This had to be a mistake. Jonas didn't have the backbone for something like this. Quiet, agreeable Jonas, who let me handle all our major decisions, who never even argued about where to eat dinner. There was no way he'd hired a lawyer without talking to me first. I grabbed my phone and called him again. Still voicemail. Jonas, what the hell is this? Some kind of joke? Call me back right now. We need to talk about this like adults. Then I called his office. His assistant Patricia answered on the second ring. Hi Patricia, it's Eirene. Is Jonas in yet? There was a pause. Mrs. Voss, Mr. Voss requested that I direct all calls to his attorney. I have the number if you'd like it. His attorney? Patricia, I'm his wife. We just got married yesterday. I understand, ma'am, but those were his instructions. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, trying to make sense of what was happening. This wasn't how Jonas operated. He was passive, accommodating. He avoided conflict like other people avoided the plague. My mother called around noon, her voice bright with post-wedding excitement. Darling, how does it feel to be Mrs. Voss? I'm still getting compliments about last night. Everyone's talking about how refreshing you were. Mom, Jonas left. He had papers delivered this morning. Annulment papers. Silence. Then, what do you mean, annulment papers? Legal documents. He wants to end the marriage. He froze our bank accounts. That's ridiculous. He's probably just embarrassed about being shown up in front of everyone. Men can be so fragile about these things. I felt a surge of relief. Of course, that's all this was. Wounded male pride. Jonas was trying to save face by making a dramatic gesture, but he'd come crawling back once he realized how foolish he looked. You're right, I said. He's just being emotional. I'll give him a day to cool off, then we'll sort this out. Exactly. And honey, don't you dare apologize for being yourself. What you did last night was honest. It takes courage to acknowledge your past instead of pretending it doesn't exist. After hanging up, I decided to post some wedding photos on social media. If Jonas was going to be dramatic, I'd control the narrative. I selected the best shots, me laughing with Lucas, the two of us cutting cake, my radiant smile as I delivered my unconventional vows. The caption read, "When you marry your best friend but refuse to erase your history. Real love means being authentic, not perfect. Modern love. Authentic wedding, ashau, no regrets." The likes and comments poured in immediately. So brave. Relationship goals. Finally, someone who keeps it real. I deleted the few negative comments and basked in the validation. See? People understood. I was ahead of my time, willing to challenge outdated relationship norms. But by evening, Jonas still hadn't called. I tried his brother, Oliver. Eirene. Oliver's voice was careful, measured. I think you should talk to a lawyer. A lawyer? Oliver, this is just Jonas being dramatic. He'll get over it. No, Eirene, he won't. I've never seen him like this. He's different. Determined. Determined to do what? Throw away our marriage over a harmless joke. Was it harmless? Really? Because from where I was sitting, it looked like you humiliated him in front of 300 people, including both your families. I felt my temper flare. I was being authentic. I was refusing to play the blushing bride role that society expects. I thought you'd understand that. What I understand is that my brother is hurt and angry, and for the first time in his life, he's not willing to just smile and take it. The call ended, leaving me alone with a growing sense of unease. I tried calling Lucas, thinking maybe he could help me understand what had Jonas so upset. But Lucas's response was typically cavalier. Look, babe, it was fun and all, but I'm not getting involved in your marital drama. Your husband seems like the type who might actually follow through on legal threats. Legal threats? His lawyer called my office today. Something about harassment and interference with marriage. I told them I was just playing along with your game, but they seemed pretty serious. My stomach dropped. Jonas had contacted Lucas's workplace. That wasn't like him at all. That night, I lay awake in our king-sized bed, staring at the ceiling. The wedding dress hung in the corner where I'd left it, a beautiful reminder of what was supposed to be the beginning of our perfect life together. Instead, it felt like evidence of a crime I didn't realize I'd committed. But I pushed that thought away. Jonas was hurt, yes, but he was also being ridiculous. Marriage required compromise, and part of that meant accepting your spouse's personality. I was bold, confident, unafraid to challenge conventions. Those were the qualities that had attracted him to me in the first place. He'd realize that eventually. He had to. Monday morning brought new problems. I arrived at my office to find my co-workers clustered around someone's computer, their voices dropping to whispers when they saw me. Morning, everyone, I said brightly, determined to maintain normalcy. My colleague Jennifer looked up with barely concealed excitement. Eirene, we saw the wedding video. So, interesting. Wedding video? She turned her computer screen toward me. There it was, a professionally shot clip of Lucas's toast, uploaded to social media by one of the guests. The video had been shared hundreds of times overnight, with comments ranging from supportive to scandalized. But that wasn't the worst part. Someone had screen captured my text messages with Lucas from the week before the wedding. Messages that made it very clear our relationship hadn't ended when I got engaged to Jonas. Can't wait to see you Saturday. Jay has no idea you're coming. Think he'll figure it out when I give my toast? God, I hope not. But if he does, might be worth it just to see his face. You're terrible. I love it. My face burned as I read our flirtation displayed for the world to see. How had someone gotten access to those messages? Eirene, my supervisor David, appeared at my cubicle. Could I see you in my office? The walk down the hallway felt eternal. David closed the door behind us and gestured for me to sit. I'm going to be direct, he said. HR received several calls this morning about social media posts related to your wedding. Apparently, there are questions about your conduct. My conduct? Specifically, whether you were engaged in an extramarital affair that you chose to showcase publicly at your wedding reception. I felt the room spin slightly. David, that's ridiculous. Lucas is an old friend. The toast was just a joke. The text messages suggest otherwise. So he'd seen them too. Of course he had. By now, half the city had probably seen them. Those messages were taken out of context, I said, trying to sound confident. People are just jealous because I had the courage to be authentic instead of playing some outdated role. David leaned back in his chair. Eirene, I don't care about your personal life, but when it starts affecting your professional reputation, it becomes my problem. Insurance is a trust-based business. Our clients need to believe in our integrity. Are you firing me? I'm suggesting you take some time off. Let this blow over. Come back when things settle down. I wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes told me it wasn't really a suggestion. I drove home in a daze, my phone buzzing constantly with notifications. Most were supportive comments from acquaintances praising my honesty, but there were others. Harsher ones, people calling me cruel, manipulative, attention-seeking. My father called that afternoon. Eirene, we need to talk. Dad, if this is about the wedding, it's about the messages, honey, the ones with Lucas. My heart sank. You saw those? Your mother showed them to me. Eirene, were you having an affair? The question hung in the air like a physical weight. I could lie, make excuses, spin it somehow, but my father had always been able to see through me. It wasn't serious, I said finally. Just flirtation, a little excitement before settling down. Jesus, Eirene. Dad, people have affairs all the time. At least I was honest about it. At least I didn't sneak around for years like most people do. Honest? You humiliated that boy in front of his entire family. You made a mockery of your wedding vows before you'd even finished saying them. I was being authentic. You were being cruel. The line went quiet. My father had never spoken to me like that before. Jonas is a good man, he continued. He didn't deserve what you did to him. So you're taking his side. I'm taking the side of basic human decency. After he hung up, I sat in my empty apartment, trying to process how quickly everything was falling apart. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. I was supposed to be the brave, modern woman who challenged conventions and won. Jonas was supposed to be the understanding husband who appreciated my honesty. Instead, I was sitting alone, unemployed, with my personal life splashed across social media for everyone to judge. My phone rang. Jonas's lawyer. Mrs. Voss, this is Margaret Morrison from Morrison & Associates. I represent your husband in the annulment proceedings. I want to talk to Jonas directly. Mr. Voss has requested that all communication go through me. I'm calling to inform you that we've filed additional paperwork today. We're seeking full restitution of wedding expenses, return of all gifts, and damages for emotional distress. Damages? You can't be serious. We have evidence of a pattern of deception and infidelity. The text messages that surfaced today support our case for fraudulent misrepresentation. Those were private, not anymore. Mrs. Voss, I'd strongly advise you to retain counsel. This isn't going away. After she hung up, I called my mother, desperate for support. Mum, they're trying to take everything. The wedding gifts, the money, everything. That's preposterous. You can't let them intimidate you. But the text messages were between two consenting adults. You're not the first woman to have complicated feelings before marriage, and you won't be the last. Her support felt hollow now. I was starting to realize that my mother's encouragement had always been less about my happiness and more about her own vicarious rebellion. That night, I tried calling Jonas one more time. To my surprise, he answered, "Hello, Eirene." His voice was different, colder, more controlled than I'd ever heard it. "Jonas, thank God. We need to talk about this craziness. Your lawyer is threatening." "My lawyer is doing exactly what I asked her to do. But this is insane. We can work through this. All couples have problems." "Problems? Eirene, you cheated on me, humiliated me publicly, and then acted like I should be grateful for your honesty." "I never cheated. It was just flirting." "I've seen the messages, all of them, including the ones from last month where you and Lucas discussed meeting at his apartment." My blood went cold. There were other messages. ones that were much more damaging than what had already been released. "Jonas, please. I made mistakes, but we can fix this." "No, Eirene, we can't. Some things can't be fixed. Some things can only be ended." The line went dead, leaving me alone with the growing realization that I had severely underestimated my quiet, agreeable husband. The next few days brought a complete collapse of my social circle. Friends who had praised my authenticity at the wedding suddenly became unavailable. Invitations were rescinded. Group chats went silent when I joined. The final straw came when my best friend since college, Michelle, agreed to meet me for lunch. I thought she'd be my ally, someone who understood me. I was wrong. "Eirene, what you did was horrible," she said without preamble as soon as we sat down at our usual restaurant. "I've been trying to process it for days, and I can't. Michelle, you know me. You know I'm not a bad person." "Do I? Because the person I watched humiliate her husband at their own wedding isn't someone I recognize. I was being honest about my past. You were being cruel. There's a difference." Michelle leaned forward, her voice intense. "Do you know what Jonas did after he left the reception?" I shook my head. "He went to Oliver's house. Oliver told me Jonas just sat on his couch for 3 hours, not saying a word. Then he asked Oliver to help him find a lawyer. So he ran to his brother instead of talking to his wife. How mature." Michelle stared at me. "Are you listening to yourself? Your husband was so devastated he couldn't even speak, and you're criticizing him for not handling it better. He's being dramatic. He's being human. Eirene, you cheated on him, then made sure everyone at your wedding knew it. You turned what should have been the happiest day of his life into public humiliation." I felt my temper rising. I refused to apologize for refusing to play the perfect bride role. I refused to pretend I don't have a past. Having a past and flaunting an affair are two different things. "So you're taking his side too?" Michelle was quiet for a long moment. Then, "There are no sides here, Eirene. There's just right and wrong. And what you did was wrong." She left me sitting alone at the table, another friendship casualty of my authenticity. That afternoon, I got a call from Jonas's mother, Maggie. I was surprised she was calling directly instead of going through lawyers. "Maggie, I'm so glad you called. I've been wanting to explain." "Don't." Her voice was ice. "I'm not calling to give you a chance to explain. I'm calling to tell you that I've contacted everyone who gave you wedding gifts. I've explained the situation and suggested they request returns." "You can't do that." "I can, and I have. I've also made sure everyone in our social circle knows exactly what kind of person you are." "Maggie, please, I know you're upset, but—" "Upset? Child, I am beyond upset. I watched you destroy my son in front of everyone who loves him. I watched you smile while you broke his heart. It wasn't meant to hurt him." "Then you're even more selfish than I thought, because anyone with an ounce of empathy would have known exactly how much it would hurt." The call ended, leaving me shaking with rage and humiliation, but the worst was yet to come. That evening, I received a group text from several college friends. "Hey Eirene, we've been talking and we think it's best if you don't come to Sarah's baby shower next weekend. Given everything that's happened, it might be uncomfortable." I stared at the message, feeling something crack inside my chest. These were women I'd known for over a decade. Women who had been bridesmaids at my wedding just days earlier. I called Sarah directly. "Sarah, it's me. What's this about the baby shower?" "Eirene, I'm sorry, but I can't have drama at my shower. My mother-in-law is already upset about the guest list, and if you come—" "If I come, what?" "People will talk about the wedding, about the affair. I can't deal with that right now." "So you're uninviting me?" "I'm asking you to understand that this isn't about you. It's about protecting my family." Another friendship gone. I spent that night scrolling through social media, watching my carefully curated image crumble in real time. The wedding video had been shared thousands of times, spawning memes and commentary about wedding disasters and narcissistic brides. Someone had created a compilation video set to dramatic music, showing Jonas's face during Lucas's toast, my laughter afterward, and Jonas's quiet exit. The video was titled, "When You Realize You Married the Wrong Person." It had 500,000 views. In desperation, I called Lucas. "This is all your fault," I said when he answered. "If you hadn't given that stupid toast—" "My fault? Eirene, you're the one who asked me to give a toast. You're the one who wanted to make some grand statement about modern love." "I didn't ask you to humiliate Jonas. You asked me to be myself. That's what I did." "Well, now his family is destroying my reputation, and my friends won't even talk to me." "Maybe because what we did was pretty shitty." I was stunned. "You're taking his side too." "I'm not taking anyone's side. I'm just saying, look, I've been thinking about it, and if someone did to me what we did to Jonas, I'd probably want revenge too." "Revenge? This isn't revenge, it's exactly revenge, and honestly, he's handling it better than I would." The line went dead. I looked around my empty apartment, at the wedding gifts stacked in corners, at the dress still hanging where I'd left it. Everything that was supposed to represent my perfect new life now felt like evidence of my spectacular failure. But I wasn't ready to give up. I still believed I could salvage this, could make people understand that I'd been brave, not cruel. I just needed a better strategy. I had no idea that Jonas was already 3 steps ahead of me, and his strategy was about to become devastatingly clear. The knock on my door came at 7 a.m. on Thursday. I opened it to find a courier with another legal envelope, this one thicker than the first. Inside was a comprehensive financial audit. Jonas's legal team had documented every joint expense from our relationship, every shared account, every wedding gift. They wanted it all back, down to the engagement ring. But that wasn't the devastating part. The devastating part was the evidence they'd compiled. Screenshots of text messages between Lucas and me going back 6 months. Bank statements showing charges at hotels during times I'd told Jonas I was working late. Credit card receipts from restaurants where Lucas and I had met. They had built a timeline of deception that was impossible to deny. My phone rang. Jonas's lawyer again. "Mrs. Voss, we need to discuss settlement terms." "I'm not settling anything. This is harassment." "Mrs. Voss, we have evidence of systematic fraud. You accepted an engagement ring, wedding gifts, and financial support under false pretenses. We can pursue this criminally if you prefer." "Criminally? Fraud is a crime. So is theft by deception. You took money and gifts from people who believed they were celebrating a legitimate marriage." I felt the walls closing in. "What do you want?" "Full restitution, return of all gifts, repayment of wedding expenses, and a signed agreement that you'll cease all contact with Mr. Voss and his family." "And if I refuse?" "Then we proceed to trial. All evidence becomes public record, including the hotel receipts and the photographs." "What photographs?" "The ones from the hotel security cameras, Mrs. Voss. The ones that show you and Mr. Mertens entering and leaving together." I sank into my couch, the phone sliding from my numb fingers. They had everything, not just the flirtatious texts, but proof of actual meetings, actual betrayal. There was no way to spin this as harmless flirtation anymore. I called my mother, desperate. "Mum, they have photos, hotel photos." "What kind of photos?" "Security camera footage, of me and Lucas." Silence then. "Oh, Eirene." "I need help. I need money for a lawyer." "Honey, I don't think... Your father and I can't afford to fight something like this." "You can't afford it? Mum, this is my life." "And you should have thought about that before you decided to have an affair." I was shocked. My mother, my biggest supporter, was abandoning me. "I thought you said I was being brave. I thought you were just being unconventional. I didn't know you were actually cheating." "You saw the text messages." "I saw flirtation. I didn't see evidence of this." After she hung up, I sat alone with the crushing realization that everyone was gone. My friends, my family, my job, Even my mother had turned against me. That afternoon, I swallowed my pride and called Jonas directly. "Please," I said when he answered. "Can we just talk, face to face?" "No." "Jonas, I'm begging you. I'll do whatever you want. I'll go to counseling. Eirene, stop. I love you." "No, you don't. You love the idea of being married. You love the status, the attention, the gifts. But you don't love me." "That's not true. If you loved me, you wouldn't have spent 6 months sneaking around with your ex-boyfriend. If you loved me, you wouldn't have humiliated me at our own wedding. I made mistakes, but people change. People grow. Some people do. But you're not people, Eirene. You're you. And you've shown me exactly who that is. So that's it? You're just going to destroy my entire life?" "I'm not destroying anything. I'm just refusing to be part of your lie anymore." The finality in his voice was terrifying. "Jonas, please. Sign the settlement agreement, Eirene. It's the best offer you're going to get." The line went dead. That night, I found myself at a bar downtown, drinking alone and scrolling through social media. The wedding video had spawned dozens of reaction videos, think pieces about modern relationships, and amateur psychological analyses of my behavior. I was famous, but for all the wrong reasons. A woman at the bar recognized me. "Hey, aren't you the wedding girl? The one who—" "No," I said quickly, throwing money on the bar and leaving. But there was nowhere to hide. My face was everywhere online, always paired with words like narcissist, cheater, and humiliation. I drove home through empty streets, past the hotel where Lucas and I had met, past the restaurant where Jonas had proposed, past the church where we'd planned to have our ceremony before deciding on the hotel ballroom instead. Every landmark of my relationship with Jonas now felt like a crime scene. Back in my apartment, I stared at the settlement papers spread across my coffee table. Signing them would mean admitting guilt, accepting responsibility, giving up everything. But not signing them would mean facing a trial where every detail of my deception would become public record. I thought about Jonas, quiet Jonas who never fought back, who always took the path of least resistance. Somehow, he'd found the strength to fight for himself in a way that was completely destroying me. And the worst part was, I was starting to realize he was right. I signed the settlement papers on Friday morning, sitting in my lawyer's office with shaking hands. The attorney I'd finally hired, a tired-looking woman named Helen Crawford, had been blunt about my options. "You have no case," she'd said. "They have documentation of systematic deception. The best we can do is minimize damages." So I signed away everything. The wedding gifts, the engagement ring, my claim to any shared assets. I agreed to reimburse Jonas for half the wedding expenses and to stay away from him and his family permanently. "What about my reputation?" I'd asked Helen. "What about it? Can't we do something about the public humiliation?" Helen had looked at me with barely concealed disgust. "Mrs. Voss, you humiliated yourself. The legal system can't fix that." The settlement was processed with ruthless efficiency. By Monday, movers arrived to collect the wedding gifts. By Tuesday, my bank account was emptied to cover the reimbursements. By Wednesday, I received a package containing my engagement ring and a note. Refund processed. Jonas had returned the ring to the jeweler and sent me the cash value. Even in revenge, he was practical. I tried to return to work the following week, but David made it clear I was no longer welcome. "The clients are uncomfortable," he explained. "Several have requested different representatives. It's just not working out." So I was unemployed, broke, and effectively exiled from my social circle. But Jonas wasn't finished. On Thursday, I received one final legal document, not from his attorney this time, but from Jonas himself. A personal letter typed on plain paper. "Eirene, by the time you read this, our marriage will be officially annulled. I wanted you to understand why I chose to handle things this way. For 2 years, I believed I was building a life with someone who loved me. I overlooked your flirtations, your need for attention, your casual cruelties, because I thought they were just personality quirks. I thought marriage would settle you, give you the security you seemed to need. I was wrong. You didn't want a marriage.